You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host, author, and occasional misanthrope, Juliette Miranda. Go to theunwritablerant.com and you can subscribe on iTunes or connect with the show on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey there, y'all. This is Juliette Miranda. Welcome to episode number 72 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I don't know what it's like where y'all are, but right here in Chicago, it is freezing cold. So what do you say we all huddle up together, get a little warm, and have something to drink? Now me, I've got my glass of bourbon by my side, so let's raise our glasses up and say cheers. Okay, that is warming, that is good, I'm feeling happy. Today, I'm drinking Rough Rider bourbon whiskey, and this was a very special present from the folks over at Heckler Kane Creations and Imperfect Podcast. So before I say anything else, let me just say thanks, guys, for sending this bourbon over to me. It is lovely. I will admit, I was skeptical when I started looking up this bottle. Rough Rider is made by Long Island Spirits, and that kind of set my antenna up because what does New York know about bourbon, right? Well, it turns out this stuff is really, really good. It's very rye heavy, so when you take that first sip, it's going to have a whole lot of sweet and spicy flavors. And then it just kind of mellows out into a nice, smooth flavor. From what I understand, this bourbon was double-aged in barrels that were used for Merlot and Chardonnay. So that really gives it kind of a nice richness of flavor. Very easy to drink. I've got mine straight up, and I'm loving it. So thanks, guys, and cheers. We are officially in 2017, and I gotta tell you, I love New Year's Eve. I know it's kind of silly and cliche, and it isn't really anything to celebrate at all, but I love going out with my guy. We get all dressed up, we pretend we're Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, and we do a whole big weekend in Chicago. Now, of course, us being who we are, that means we get up to a little bit of mischief, too. Now, the evening started off perfectly lovely. We had a great dinner. And when we were ready to get a little bit crazy, we wound up at one of our very favorite bars. I'm not going to tell you what bar it is because, again, I want to be asked back there, although considering how the night wound up, I'm not sure they're going to let us back in. But we started off with the best of intentions, I swear. We got ourselves all set up at a table, and you have to picture this bar. It's a very dark, dank sort of Chicago bar. I mean, truly, it's been there since Prohibition, I'm sure. It picks up a very old crowd. I think my guy and I were probably the youngest people in there, and that's taking into consideration the bartender, the fish in the tank in the back, and the Christmas decorations. But that is exactly how I like it, because it's a very low-key atmosphere. You know, we could kick back, we could drink scotch all night, and listen to a jazz trio play. Perfect, right? We can pretend we're in the 20s, but then, you know, that's kind of when I start getting that Zelda Fitzgerald sort of craziness in my brain. That's kind of when things start to go wrong. Or right, depending on how you look at it. Because here's the thing. Now, while this bar was incredibly low-key, they did make a stab at decorating for the new year. Right next to the piano, there was a giant silver balloon. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to y'all, but I love balloons. My guy is convinced I have a circus fetish, and he's probably right, because I just have this ridiculous passion for balloons. We can't go to Disney World without me having to walk out with a Mickey Mouse balloon tethered to my arm. There's just something whimsical and silly and fun about them. So when I saw this balloon, and you have to picture this thing, it's the size of the moon. It was huge and shiny and awesome. And my guy, of course, sees me eyeballing it. And it's early in the night, so he looks at me and he says, "You can't have the balloon." And I'm sober enough to say, "Oh, don't worry, baby. I don't want the balloon. I just like looking at it." I wanted that balloon. I wanted that balloon with every single fiber of my being. But like I said, it was early, so we just kept hanging out and having a great time, drinking and talking. And I know what my guy was thinking. He's thinking if I drink enough liquor, it'll make me forgetful. But that was his mistake because it just makes me more wacky. And of course, by midnight and after the countdown and the celebrating and the kissing, the bar is starting to settle down a little bit. But my guy and I, we're just kicking in. And that's when I make my move. I order us another round. I look at my guy and I go, "Baby, I want the balloon." And it is the perfect apex of crazy and drinking because my guy looks at me and he goes, "All right, you can have the balloon." So we sat there for the next 20 minutes and we hatched out a plan for the great balloon heist of 2017. It's about 1:15 in the morning when we make our move. We've paid our tab, we've got our coats on, and we're ready for action. Now, this can either end like Bonnie and Clyde or Mary Poppins. We have no idea which. But I'm ready. Now, I walk up to the balloon, and I have to impress upon you just how large this balloon is. This is the size of something that could take you out of Oz. I mean, picture it. This is like 5 feet in circumference, 8 feet in height. Now, I'm exaggerating a little bit because the room was small, but you get my point. There is no subtle way to steal this balloon. I would have to freeze time to not be noticed. I can't just stuff this thing down my coat. And by the way, I'm not the most inconspicuous person on the planet, particularly on New Year's Eve, where I'm wearing my mother's ankle-length mink coat and stiletto heels. I look like a deranged Zelda Fitzgerald. I do. And I'm standing in front of this balloon, just hearing a choir of angels sing. And I know I have to grab that thing like I own it, which is exactly what I do. I take hold of the rope that it's tethered to and begin to drag that balloon and the sandbag it's attached to out of that bar. I am leading that thing down the hallway, walking towards the front door like I am leading the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And I almost made it. Almost. Except here's the problem. I'm not a mathematician. And my depth perception is even worse. You try to throw a ball at me, I can't even catch it. That's how bad my depth perception is. So I didn't anticipate a narrow door. Y'all, I make a shitty thief, I admit it. Because I opened that door and I've got my guy right behind me, and I realize my mistake. That balloon ain't gonna fit through that door. But I'm thinking, it's a balloon. I can squeeze it through. Well, I'm on one side of the door pulling. My guy is on the other side of the door pushing like some sort of idiotic push me, pull you. And we're doing everything we can, but no amount of bacon grease is going to slather that balloon up to get it through that door. And then it happens. The loudest pop since the shot heard round the world. Now, a regular balloon popping is startling. When a balloon the size of the mall explodes, it sounds like a cannonball in a nitroglycerin plant. Everyone heard it. And they all look up. And there I am, looking like I just emerged from a wind tunnel, holding nothing but a rope attached to a sandbag. And I'm looking for my guy, but of course, he's ducked out the front door, leaving me to the brunt of everyone's annoyed stares. They can't quite figure out what happened. And now you got to remember, Chicago has kind of become the murder capital of the nation. So hearing a sound like that raises a lot of alarms. So I knew I had to get the hell out of there pretty quickly. But of course, I had to make an exit. So I did a quick curtsy, wished everyone a happy new year, and I ducked out that front door where, thank God, my guy was waiting with a getaway cab. I got in the cab, snuggled up next to my guy, and said, "Well, my love, looks like we started this new year off with a bang." And with that, I am raising my glass up and drinking to the worst possible pun I could have ever made. Happy New Year, y'all. All right, bourbon. You know, I gotta say, this Rough Rider bourbon, it's really easy to drink, which probably explains why I'd say 3/4 of the bottle is empty right now. My guy and I have 2 entirely different ways of celebrating the new year. You know, he's into purging and cleansing and throwing shit away. Whereas I'm more of a, buy and add and prettify kind of girl. So on the day after New Year's, I went on down to our garage and I found my guy under the stairs, organizing, doing whatever it is that you do with boxes under the stairs. And I told him my plans for the day. While he was doing all of that, I was going to go shopping and head to the spa. Now, here's a very pivotal point in the story, and I'm just calling it out because it will be important later. My car was already in the driveway, so my guy looks at me and says, "Would you mind going out through the front door? I don't want to let any cold air into the garage while I'm working here." Well, that was perfectly reasonable, of course. So I kissed him goodbye and went about my normal exit routine. Well, my day was spectacular. I was able to buy all sorts of pretty new additions to my wardrobe. And then at the spa, absolute heaven. There was a massage, there was a facial, more cucumber water than could float a whale. It was awesome. So I'm driving home and I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling like this new year is going to be wonderful. And I'm really excited to see my guy and, tell him about my day and show him all of the pretty new things that I've purchased. So I pull into the driveway and I'm thinking enough time has passed that I can open the garage door now. He won't be working in there. And standing there in the threshold of the door, I see my guy staring at me with his arms folded, really not looking all that happy to see me. But I'm all hopped up on my fancy day and spa time that I grab all my shopping bags and prance up to my guy and start burbling about all the fun stuff I've done. And all he can say in response is 5 hours. Now, I don't know what that means. I'm a little slow on the reply, so I look at him and I say, 5 hours? 5 hours till dinner? Till aliens invade? What do you mean by that, my love? Well, it turns out 5 hours is the amount of time that I managed to lock my guy out of our house. Now, in the course of a relationship, people make mistakes. That's just the way of life. Now, some of these mistakes are small, some are big, some are forgivable, some are not. And in this particular juncture of our relationship where we're standing there and my guy is looking a little crazy, I made the biggest mistake of my entire life. Because I didn't apologize. I didn't try to calm him down or warm him up. No. I looked at my husband and I said, well, gee, baby, why didn't you just call me? And that is when my guy looks at me like a gator about to pounce on a chicken carcass. And I realize my mistake. And he looks at me and he says, check your phone. Y'all, I didn't want to check my phone. I really didn't want to see what was on there, but he's staring at me, tapping his foot, and I know I have no choice but to pull my phone out of my purse, the very same phone that I did not have on. I think I've mentioned before that I hate having a cell phone. I hate the fact that people can reach me at any point in time during the day. That I can be, laying on a spa table, being massaged and rubbed with oil, and have my phone ring and interrupt my bliss. Because I'm an asshole. And I'm such an asshole that I never turn my phone on, and I blithely assume that the only people who could possibly have an emergency and need to reach me would be my parents. And in that instance, they can always just call my guy because he always has his phone on. So, of course, I press that magic button, and lo and behold, I have 10 missed calls, 5 missed voicemails, and 47 text messages, all increasing in urgency, desperation, and anger. And hand to God, the last text said, I guess I'm going to have to move. My guy looks at me, looks down at the phone, and looks back up at me and says, do you want to know what I have been doing for the last 5 hours here in the cold garage? No, I really don't. I really did not want to know at all what he had done because it washes over me right then and there that I am a shitty wife. I have locked my guy in the garage when it is 0 degrees outside. We have an absence of temperature. That is how cold it was outside, and I'm guessing the garage wasn't much warmer. Well, it turns out he spent the first hour trying to find a way to get back into the house. But you have to understand how our townhouse is constructed. It's 3 stories, and the main level, the ground floor, if you will, is our garage, and 2 doors, one in the garage and our front door, leading into a hallway that just takes you upstairs to the main living area, which is on the 2nd floor. To get into the house, my guy would have had to scale the side of the building. We don't own a ladder. And the last I checked, my guy can't shoot webs. There may have been a couple of attempts to kick in the door like Chuck Norris, and there are scuff marks on the door to prove it. And that kind of explains the new limp that my guy was walking with. During the 2nd hour, he did everything he could to contact somebody who could let him into our house. He called my family, he tried calling my girlfriend who has a spare key, he tried calling the association. Nobody was around. And that's when the frantic calling to me starts. He did everything he could, short of sending a carrier pigeon to try and waken me out of my obnoxious spa-induced bliss. And that led him to the third hour, where my guy was huddled over the one space heater in the garage, calling me Satan. He didn't have a coat. He wasn't even wearing a long-sleeve shirt. No, he was in a t-shirt, jeans. My guy had nothing. Nothing except rage and cold, and the knowledge that his wife was trapping him in the garage like a veal. Well, by the fourth hour, my poor guy was so bored and lonely that he started talking to the life-size John Bon Jovi cutout we had stashed under the stairs. Fortunately, however, there is Grubhub. He used the last juice on his cell phone to order a pizza. And apparently he was a heartbeat away from including an SOS message that characterized me as the new Ed Gein. And when that pizza arrived, he told me that he was looking at that driver like a savior. He wanted to cling to his leg and beg the driver to at least allow him to sit in the car and warm up with a heater. By the fifth hour, he came to look at that garage as his final resting spot. So much so that he rewrote his will on the greasy pizza box. And I was not in it. My poor guy went through such a tremendous ordeal, and then I'm standing there glistening and glowing, laden down with shopping bags. I'm certain at that moment, if he had been able to, he would have set fire to everything in those bags just to prove a point. Well, I walked my poor guy into the house then, as though he'd been rescued from a puppy mill. I soothed him with blankets and plied him with bourbon, and he finally started to come around again. But I did have to make 3 promises to get back in his good graces. 1, the next day I had to go out and make a shiny new set of emergency keys to keep in the garage. 2, I had to resolve to never shut my phone off when I am out of the house without him. And 3, if all else fails and I still manage to lock my guy out of the house, I will understand if he wants to seek refuge with our new hot neighbor. I can't say that I would blame him. So with this, I am raising up my glass to my poor, tortured guy, and I'm saying, I'm so sorry, love. All right, bourbon. Well, y'all, I have to say it's been a little bit of a bumpy start to the new year, but I'm confident that things will eventually smooth out. So I'm going to go curl up with what's left of my bourbon. If you want to check out any of the back episodes of the Unwritable Rant podcast, just go to theunwritablерant.com. And if you're in the mood to find a new podcast for the new year, just head on over to Twitter and look for Podern Family. It's a great collection of podcasts about everything that you can possibly imagine. And me, too, of course. So I hope you all have a great week. I will be back to chat with you again next Sunday. Cheers, y'all.
You as pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, a couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton roulette. Hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.